Welcome to UN Insider. I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Join us as we delve into the world's most pressing issues and learn how the people inside work toward a better future for everyone around the world.
Coming up on UN Insider.
This is really a tragedy, and it has been too long.
Urgent calls to get more aid into Gaza and bring an end to fighting between Israel and Hamas. The UN demands a new ceasefire.
Quite simply, the violence must stop.
How should we come together as the international community to govern AI?
Solving a tech dilemma. How the UN is working to reap the benefits of artificial intelligence while avoiding the potential dangers.
Every single one of these sites has a truly unique story to tell.
Preserving a complex underwater world. Efforts to protect the so-called rainforests of the sea. Next.
Diplomats here at UN headquarters continue to push for an end to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas.
This is really a tragedy, and it has been too long. We have suffered too much. So for the Security Council, definitely to maintain peace and security is our primary responsibility. And we have tried very hard. And of course, we need to do more.
Monday, China's ambassador to the UN got a first-hand look at conditions at the only entry point for aid to Gaza. Ambassador Zhang Jun and 11 other members of the Security Council traveled to the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing. The next day, in an emergency session, the General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to demand an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Xu Deja is monitoring developments inside the halls of the United Nations. Deja.
Yes, Elaine, Gaza Strip still dominated the press agenda here in the United Nations. Since last week, when the Secretary General invoked UN Charter Article 99, when the draft resolution calling for humanitarian ceasefire was vetoed by the United States, drama continues. The General Assembly resumed its 10th Emergency Special Session, or what we call ESS, following the veto in the Security Council, to again discuss the situation in Gaza. The General Assembly overwhelmingly passed the second resolution since October 7th, demanding for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. You will notice that the last resolution, which gained 120 votes in favor in late October, only called for an immediate, durable, and sustained humanitarian truce, but this time with 153 votes in favor, the resolution demands a ceasefire.
I think it sends a clear message from the international community. As you say, the numbers were very high. For his part, the Secretary General will continue to advocate for and push for a humanitarian ceasefire in public and in private.
In addition, organized by UAE, a delegation of most of the Security Council members, including Chinese Ambassador Zhang Jun, visited Al Rafah border crossing and a hospital in Egypt. During this, what the UN Secretariat called unofficial visit, the members of Security Council also met with the UN officials, including UNRWA's Commission General Philip Lazzarini. The visit hopefully will give Security Council a propulsion to act. We also talked with Ms. Adele Holder, Regional Director of UNICEF Office in the Middle East and North Africa. When talking about children in Gaza Strip, she said there's simply no normal life there.
So there is nothing normal in their life and the way they are living it now. And the needs are huge, whether those needs are related to protection, of course, from killing, from maiming, from being injured, or whether they are related to also being exposed to some waterborne diseases, because the water that they are using is not safe drinking water. And of course, they do not have the food that is usually available for a normal child in a normal family. And in addition, of course, the children are totally traumatized from all the noises that they have been through, from the experiences. Many of them have seen their parents dead, or their other family members, or their friends.
So we talk about the dire situation and now what they're facing. But on the other hand, we also have a potential of a psychological impact of these conflicts to children.
Many of them are going to have signs of trauma that will stay with them for life, post-traumatic stress disorders. Many of them might become unable to maybe to speak. Some of them might turn into being very isolated as individuals, or also turn into becoming more violent individuals. When the population that was displaced was staying in settlements of IDPs, let's say in some of the schools that were in the strict, it was possible for UNICEF to organize with our partners some psychosocial support for these children, like play activities, engaging them in some activities of learning that will keep them from thinking about what is happening around them. But now with this increased level of violence and the constant movement of the population from one place to the other, it is practically not possible to organize for them the psychosocial support that is needed.
We know that in many other places, especially in Middle East, in North Africa, there are other places that attention needs to be paid to those children. Can you tell us what are some of the other areas?
Sudan has the highest number of children displaced in the world. And the world is not speaking enough about Sudan. And we should not forget those children. We have 4 million children displaced in Sudan. We have 19 million children who are out of school in Sudan.
Ultimately, the question would be, is UNICEF in Middle East, in North Africa, capable of dealing with all those things simultaneously?
It's a lot for any region to be able to handle, and for any organization. But I think that we are seriously lending our voice or speaking out on behalf of children. So we may not be able, of course, with our resources are not enough to reach every child. And this is why we need, in most of these situations, or in all of them, we need political solutions.
Ms. Coder, thank you very
much. Thank you for having.
With a deteriorating humanitarian situation, international community is pushing for the reopening of a second border crossing, Karim Shalom. Now, Israel has agreed to use Karim Shalom as an inspection point, but trucks still need to go to Al-Rafah. The more trucks in Gaza, the better humanitarian conditions will be, hopefully. But will Israel agree? That's what we have to see.
The UN's climate conference wrapped up in Dubai this week. The stakes were high going into COP28, with the world seeing rising temperatures, more extreme weather events, and a big gap in the funding, as well as commitments needed to reach critical climate goals.
Hearing no objection, it is so decided.
Jubilant scenes at the final session as a resolution was unanimously endorsed at the 11th hour. The critical fossil fuel phase-out issue had taken center stage throughout the conference. As the deadline approached, the first draft on Monday night caused quite a stir, after sensationally omitting that very issue from the final text. Dozens of countries described the omission as unacceptable, and demonstrations by activists at the site went up a couple of notches. but China was among the countries to intervene and help achieve the necessary breakthrough. Its special envoy said the agreement was something the US and China had been working towards in previous climate meetings.
Here in Dubai, we have already fulfilled part of what we agreed in Sunnyland, which is working together to make a successful COP28. When negotiations were getting stuck, we worked together and provided joint proposals to unlock the deadlock in negotiations and facilitate it for the success of the COP.
Chinese envoy Xie Zhonghua's American counterpart John Kerry highlighted the importance of cooperation with China at the climate conference.
We both hope and are pleased that we think our joint work not only advanced our respective national efforts, but also reflected at the COP in many ways throughout the creating of momentum and providing substantive ideas.
According to the final document, the term phase out has been replaced with transitioning away from fossil fuels. And it was still accepted by nations that initially didn't want a change of language.
Looking at the combined text with the references to science and the references to 1.5, it's actually stronger than what we've had before.
Amongst other clauses, the document for the first time puts emphasis on speeding up mitigation and adaptation finance, doubling energy efficiency, and tripling renewable energy production levels. This has been welcomed by developing nations.
I think most important for African countries is that we have finally won a global goal on adaptation, which has themes, it's measurable, and it's time-bound.
The summit has been described by its president as an historic event, one of many firsts. But as delegates celebrate this milestone, many have warned that what's coming up is more important. For this conference here to be really successful, the pledges have to be implemented. Yes, Hakim for CGTN at the COP28, Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
Coming up,
the talent that China has on AI is unparalleled.
UN Insider.
We are CGTN, China Global Television Network.
For all the benefits that come with AI, there are also a number of ethical questions. It could help rapidly accelerate progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals, but it could also pose numerous threats. The UN is working to find the best ways to regulate the powerful technology. A new AI advisory group is working on a series of recommendations. I sat down with one of the members of that group. Amandeep Singh Gill is the Secretary General's tech envoy. Ambassador Gill, tell us more about the UN's concerns about AI, so much so that the Secretary General formed this AI advisory body.
Yes, so it's concerns, but it's also an assessment and appreciation of the opportunity that artificial intelligence and related technologies offer. Concern about human rights violations, discrimination, biases that get amplified, misinformation, disinformation that could undermine legitimate political processes. Concerns also about misuse for development of biological, chemical weapons, for new kinds of cyber weapons. And so those are all on the negative side of the ledger. And then there are challenges given the pace of the technology, the opacity, the opaqueness of some of these systems that government officials, regulators have not yet fully grasped. So what's the technology really like? What are its capabilities? There's a lack of understanding. So for all those reasons, the UN Secretary General has made this a priority.
How do you build consensus, especially when it comes to governance among all of these member states when there are so many other initiatives out there right now and everyone's trying to figure out how do we address AI?
Those initiatives are all welcome, but I think a critical difference between these initiatives and the UN's work is the UN is a universal forum. Each and every country, small or big, rich or poor, is represented at the UN. UN also has a legitimacy, has credibility in terms of convening different actors, including civil society and the private sector, to talk about technology and its impact. I think the thinking that the SG has, the Secretary General has, is that all these valuable initiatives, we need to knit them together so that they work across borders. This is essentially a global problem like climate change is. And also we anchor these initiatives in some shared values for humanity, some shared principles.
We know that China is fairly advanced technologically and has made some big headway in artificial intelligence and has already started to regulate generative AI. There are some representatives on this advisory board. So talk to us about what countries like China can bring to the table.
China has an extremely important role to play in this area. There are 2 Chinese experts on this advisory body. They have distinguished themselves in work inside China on the management, the regulation of AI, but also internationally on the ethics of AI, on the governance of AI. China, as a developing country, has leveraged digital technologies in a very impressive way. So there's a lot that the rest of the global south can learn from China. On AI, the amount of research output coming out of China, the number of published papers, the talent that China has on AI is unparalleled. It's next only to the US, perhaps, where there is a kind of a longer history of developments around AI. So China, I would say, is an indispensable actor on discussions on AI governance.
You mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. How can AI and other technologies help accelerate the progress toward those SDGs as we're coming up on 2030 in just less than 7 years?
Yes, so that's really exciting about the latest generation of AI models, data and AI systems. They have the potential to accelerate innovation, scientific discovery in fundamental ways. For instance, agriculture and food security, or health, or environment, or the circular economy. So it's not a question of adding 1 or 2 percentage points to growth, which will happen, but it's a question of fundamental transformation of the innovation ecosystems, how you bring expertise together across disciplines and come out with new breakthroughs. So that's one of the potentials for the SDGs. The other one is bridging the last mile gap. Many things like health delivery, public health services, or the training of farmers, the agriculture extension issue, are constrained by the amount of experts, the number of experts you have, and the need for those experts to kind of meet with farmers or health workers or patients one-to-one. So AI can bridge that last mile gap and make expertise available in the local language, in the local context, to larger numbers of people.
And that being said, progress when it comes to inequality as well, because you have so many other countries around the world where getting internet is still a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. So this is one concern that we have at the UN, that on top of the existing digital divide, there may be new divides around data and AI, around innovation. So we have to now work harder to make sure that the human resource is nurtured in the global south in particular, that we have local digital economies that flourish.
And as we speak, you're working on a report that will hope shed some light on everything that is happening. Tell us a little bit more about that report and the big forum summit that you hope to have in 2024.
So this advisory body has been tasked to come out with an interim report with recommendations to the international community on models for international governance of AI. So how do we get this right, and can we learn from existing models of technology governance? This report would also feed into preparations for the Summit of the Future next year, where a global digital compact is to be adopted. If 193 member states of the UN are going to come together at the leaders level for this summit, there's a unique opportunity to take some decisions and to embed the thinking of the advisory body, the recommendation of the advisory body into those decisions, so that the international community can place its response on a more sustainable basis for the years to come.
Ambassador Amandeep Singh Gill, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up.
If we lose them, we lose a part of our humanity. We have to build a new relationship with our natural resources.
UN Insider.
Whether it's about your education, the home you live in, or the items you buy, your money has a story to tell. Because every business story is a human story. Global Business.
Life below water is the 14th Sustainable Development Goal. An estimated 1 billion people benefit from the oceans directly or indirectly. Oceans are home to countless animals and organisms, many that those of us on dry land never get to see. Francis Coe shows us how a team of scientists in the U.S. is using new tools to help protect some underwater treasures.
They're nicknamed the rainforests of the sea, coral reefs, bursting with a brilliance of colors. They cover less than 1% of the sea floor, but comprise complex and diverse underwater communities, home to 25% of all marine life.
A fascinating ecosystem on the planet.
Stuart Sandin is a professor at Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego. He's been studying coral reefs for 25 years.
If you jump in the water in one location of a coral reef, you're likely to see hundreds of species of fish, hundreds of species of corals, and countless number of little invertebrates. Just that vast diversity packed into a tiny place makes it just a bastion of life.
And a crucial buffer against erosion and storm surges.
That coral ecosystem also serves as a break from the intensity, the strength, and sometimes the overwhelming power of the ocean. Breaking waves, dispersing that energy, and protecting coastal ecosystems.
But warming temperatures are threatening these valuable and vulnerable colonies, causing the corals to expel the symbiotic algae living in their tissues and lose their bright colors.
The corals are having some trouble adapting to the heat. The animals that live in the coral reefs with no corals have no home. So there's a big worry out there about what the future of coral reefs will look like.
What that future looks like is the vision behind the 100 Island Challenge, an initiative run by Sandin and his team in a collaboration with 19 countries around the world.
These two kind of have similar structures.
And we got to see it with our own eyes. In this lab, coral reefs from 100 islands across the Caribbean, Indian, and Pacific Oceans come to us.
How do we actually drain the oceans to reveal what is out there?
Answering that question is another member of the team, Falco Kuster, an engineering professor at the university. He's using artificial intelligence to develop algorithms to analyze and identify nearly 1 million corals across the 100 islands. It works by stitching smaller digital snapshots together to build these stunning 3D models.
Capturing 1 million plus point for a single square meter, rather than the 10 points that we would get if we go to our online Google Maps.
That resolution allows the scientists to monitor over time and in minute detail how corals are growing, shrinking, living, and dying, a far cry from traditional methods.
1 or 2 people would get in the water, they would observe things, write something down on a piece of paper, underwater paper, and then record that and then create a graph and tell the story of what they observed.
The technology has been transformative, allowing the team to see coral reefs in a whole new light.
It's like identifying your favorite child, right? There's really no such thing. Every single one of these sites has a truly unique story to tell.
The stories also revealed a stunner, an unusually positive anecdote in the climate change narrative.
We're actually finding that there are some corals that are suffering the effects of climate change, and that community of corals grows back stronger. It grows back with more of an ability to face high temperatures than their predecessors.
The team is now investigating why some corals are so resilient and what that says about the future health of these kaleidoscopic communities amid a changing planet.
If we lose them, we lose a part of our humanity. We have to build a new relationship with our natural resources if we want to maintain some of this beauty, this wonder, and the productivity. So we have this unique opportunity to think about how the world around us has changed, and more importantly, how do we navigate it for the next generation so that we preserve the things that are important to us as humans and as a society.
Frances Coe, CGTN, San Diego.
I'm Elaine Reyes at UN headquarters in New York. Thanks for being a UN Insider.